at the forefront of politics.
Our enemy is Trump. He is the enemy. We gotta unite. If we're not a united party, we lose to Trump.
On the front lines of activism.
There's certain fights, if we don't engage, they win. This is a fundamental question of who we are.
And delivering your daily dose of comedy.
Donald Trump, when he had his physical, they had his blood pressure, and mine is higher than his. Oh. And the irony is mine is higher because of him.
From the blue wave.
We flipped enough seats to take control of the House. We control the House.
To 2020 and beyond. This is the Dean Obeidallah Show on Sirius XM Progress, Channel 127.
And welcome to the show, brothers and sisters. Monday, November 25th. I'm Dean Obeidallah. As always, your needy MBFF. I hope you had a good weekend. I hope you had some fun, relaxed. There's a lot to digest last week. We had 2 weeks, different days of public hearings, the impeachment, a lot to process. I hope you reflected a little bit on the weekend about it. And it's Thanksgiving week. We'll try to think about what we'll give thanks for later in the week. But some breaking news before I get into the regular part of the show right now. Just a short time ago, in the least surprising court decision of my lifetime, I must be blunt about it, the federal judge said Don McGahn, the former Trump White House counsel, has to testify and rejects the White House's claim that there's an absolute immunity from compelled congressional testimony, close quotes. Just so it's clear, the Trump administration's arguments that the people who work for them and even people who used to work for them are absolutely immune from testimony is literally making up new law. This is like day one stuff here. The judge said he's got to testify and he can invoke privileges wherever he wants to, wherever he thinks is appropriate. That's the way it goes. Trump is really trying to make their own law here, that they're really trying to carve him as above the law, and that his edict, like a king, he can just wave his magic wand or whatever garbage you want to use with Donald Trump and can somehow put himself and everyone that's ever talked to him above the scope of any kind of inquiry, like his lawyers have argued in federal court in the other matter, getting his tax returns, that you should not be able to sue civilly or even investigate criminally a sitting president, is trying to take the powers of the presidency to a new level. This decision by the judge is completely expected. It's exactly what everyone who has any legal background at all would say the judge's decision. McGahn's got to testify. You can't ignore subpoenas. You got to go there. And if there's any time there's attorney-client privilege, or in this case, executive privilege, you will say, and your attorney will talk to you, or the attorney will actually assert the privilege and say, members of the committee, my client cannot answer that, as you know, because of blah, 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 whatever it might be, or invoke attorney-client privilege or Fifth Amendment, if that's relevant, whatever it is. This absolute bar on people testifying is Trump, the criminal, trying to be above the law. Donald Trump does not respect our legal system. In fact, he has disdain and contempt for the entire United States Constitution. So this is just part and parcel of that, folks. So this judge's decision is not surprising. It's the way it should be. McGahn could appeal. The White House could try to intervene. I'm not sure if they're party to this lawsuit. I haven't looked at the actual pleadings. I could check at it in the break because this just came down minutes ago, and try to appeal it on his behalf or say we have a vested interest in this. And we'll see if a federal court would entertain that or not. But if you get a subpoena, folks, you can't just ignore it. Doesn't matter who you are. You got to go. Then you can invoke any privilege you want when you're there. This is outrageous what's going on. So let's get back. And tomorrow, Danny Savalas will be here. And actually, Midwin Charles. We have 2 lawyers on, I believe, tomorrow. And we'll cover this in more detail. But I can just assure you, this decision is not surprising in any way. This is Law 101 stuff. I'm not even kidding. I'm not being trite about it or cute about it. This is Law 101. You get a subpoena. You can't ignore it. You can go and you can assert any privilege you want in response to any specific question. And if the other side, in this case, a congressional panel, does not believe your invocation of that privilege is correct, they'll say, we want you to answer. And they'll say, no, my lawyer said no. And what will happen is you'll just do all the other testimony, and then they would appeal to court and litigate that specific question or those handfuls of questions. And a judge will say, you've got to answer this. You don't have to answer that. You have to answer this, whatever it might be. And later they have to go answer it. That's the way it works all the time. This is it. The contempt by Donald Trump for our legal system and our Constitution is palpable. And that's what you get when you have someone, as I'm going to talk about, him and Senator John Kennedy and some of the other Trump backers are really wading into the area of treason. And I say that not being hyperbolic. And I'll go through what I mean by that based on the Constitution and our federal statute and the definition of what treason means. And keep in mind, we'll get to that, but keep in mind this. The Russian military attacked our election in 2016. And right now we have Donald Trump, John Kennedy, and others giving aid and comfort to the enemy who attacked us. And that was the headline. Let's talk about some of the lighter stuff first. Here is SNL did a great sketch on the 2020 Democratic debate. I want to play a couple of different answers together. We put it together. I think it makes sense. Some funny stuff. Larry David as Bernie Sanders was there. They had Woody Harrelson as Joe Biden. Maya Rudolph came back as Kamala Harris. Rachel Dratch was Amy Klobuchar. We're not going to play all those different people, just in case you hear the different voices there. Colin Jost from Weekend Update is playing Pete Buttigieg. And another cast member is playing Tulsi Gabbard. But let's hear a couple of them cut together. I thought it was really funny. Clip number 1, please.
We'll now move on to Mayor Buttigieg.
America, I know I can do this because my supporters are a diverse coalition from young to old, gay to straight, white to eggshell.
Tulsi Gabbard, time for your closing statement.
I have no interest in those Dalmatian puppies.
Senator Sanders.
As many of you know, a lot of my opponents like to throw the word socialist around for me. But let me ask you, is it fair that only the top 2% often get a free biscotti with their coffee? We would all love a free biscotti. You dip it, you dunk it, it's delicious. So if that's socialism, sign me up. Tell me this. Is it fair that when the top 2% want to turn off the lights in their bedroom, all they have to do is clap? They got the clapper. Shouldn't we all have clappers? Either everybody has a clapper or nobody has a clapper. And that's the America I want to live in.
It's funny stuff. My gosh, Larry David is just like Bernie Sanders come to life. When you watch it, there's a time you forget that it's Larry David and not Bernie Sanders. So before we get into Trump's enablers here and just the peddling, I have to be blunt. The Trump enablers and Trump himself are peddling a theory that has been born of and championed by Russian intelligence agencies. And they are knowingly championing that. And I don't know how you get away from using the word treason in that setting. And we'll get into that. Quick thing, a lot of times you have the Republicans with their own spin and saying, oh, their base is going to be so excited by impeachment and impeachment is going to hurt the Democrats. Well, I'm going to cite for you a new poll today, Rasmussen poll, which is the one, if you go on Twitter, Trump always cites Rasmussen because it's not an honest poll. It oversamples Republicans. So I look at it to see how the Republican base is supporting Trump. And last week, before the first public hearings last week, Trump had a 50% approval rating. It's right down the middle, 50-50. And there's Trump tweeting 50% approval rating. Thank you, America, because he knows it's mostly Republicans in that. Well, today, guess where it went? From 50-50 now to Trump was down to 44% approval and a disapproval of 55% in a week. So he went from even approve versus disapprove to now 11-point gap, more disapprovals to approvals. And that's just in a week, folks. And what this means is some Republicans, not many, but some have left him. So they are troubled about why they're hearing in these impeachment hearings. So I don't know how many Republicans will peel off and it will be significant or not, but this says something here. He went from dead even to negative 11% in terms of disapproval versus approval in 1 week. And the only thing that happened in the last week was 3 full days of impeachment hearings. But that does not mean Trump's enablers are not out there. His cheerleaders are out there speaking to the Republican base, because here's how you know when they're talking to the Republican base. When they say something and we have two reactions, either we laugh at it and go, that's insane, or two, we get angry because we know it's intellectually dishonest. And here is Rick Perry today on Fox News telling us who chose Trump. If you're drinking something, you're going to want to put this down because there'll be a spit take after this, or, just sit down for this one because this is crazy talk. Clip number 2, please.
God's used imperfect people all through history. King David wasn't perfect. Saul wasn't perfect. Solomon wasn't perfect. And I actually gave the president a little one-pager on those Old Testament kings about a month ago. And I shared it with him. I said, Mr. President, I know there are people that say, you said you were the chosen one. And I said, you were. I said, if you're a believing Christian, you understand God's plan for the people who rule and judge over us on this planet in our government.
All right. So Rick Perry, but first, quick thing there. Rick Perry said he gave a one-pager to Trump on the Old Testament, which is just priceless because he knows Trump probably won't read that, but he won't read anything more. So I gave him a one-pager on the kings from the Old Testament. So I gave him the Cliff Notes of the Old Testament. That's just funny for me. Second, God chose Trump. So apparently to the Republicans, Vladimir Putin is now God because that's who chose Trump, folks. Yes, there are millions of Americans, but God, I can assure you it was not God. Unless maybe I thought about this. Maybe God did choose Trump. And not for the reason you think. Maybe for the idea that God, and I know a lot of you don't believe in God, so just humor me on this. That God said, this Donald Trump continually is able to escape justice and accountability for his wrongs. So what I have to do is keep promoting him up until finally he gets enough attention where he'll be held accountable. That's my view. I think God pushed him all the way up so he'd finally be punished. Because you look at the Bible, it says things here. It says, woe to the wicked. It will go badly with him, for what he deserves will be done to him. And assuredly, the evil man will not go unpunished. And another quote, I will also put an end to the arrogance of the proud and abase the haughtiness of the ruthless. That's all God talking if you believe in the Bible. Maybe Trump was pushed up by God. Even the Quran has something very similar. The Quran says, and now you're all going to become Muslim. Enjoy this, folks. That's right. And let not those who disbelieve ever think that because we extend their time of enjoyment, it is better for them. We only extend it for them so that they may increase in sin. And for them is a humiliating punishment. That's actually perfect, the Quran. It's saying only because we're only going to have you move up and enjoy it, but it's not good for you because your humiliation is going to be so much worse. I kind of like that part of the Quran and all the Bible quotes there. Let's talk about the seriousness, though. We'll get into the real things here. First, here's Adam Schiff yesterday with Jake Tapper making a great point. Jake was talking about polls showing that the number of Americans who support impeachment are not really moving up. And he's wondering, is it the right thing? Because some battleground poll somewhere, someplace that somebody did at some time last week shows the people there don't like impeachment. And here's Adam Schiff with a really good answer. And listen to the end of it. He talks about why he came around to impeachment. I think this is so fundamentally important. Clip number 3.
Public support for impeachment has grown fairly dramatically in the last 2 months. So whether it is now essentially at a plateau or whether it will continue to grow or shrink, I don't think is really the question we should be asking. I think in the first instance, we should be asking, what's our constitutional duty here? And if we decide our duty is to impeach, then we need to make the case to the American people, and we have to hope that we will be successful in making that case. But this shouldn't be driven by what we think helps us in 2020 or hurts us in 2020. There are good arguments by commentators in either direction. I don't think that's the question I should be asking myself. And as I mentioned in my closing statement the other day, Jake, what brought me from an opponent of going down the road to impeachment into someone who felt it was necessary that we do this inquiry is the fact that the day after Bob Mueller testified about Donald Trump's invitation to the Russians to intervene, his willingness to make use of it in his campaign, the lies that he told about it, and the obstruction of justice in terms of the investigation into it, the day after that, Jake, Donald Trump was back on the phone asking yet another foreign leader, Zelensky, for yet more foreign help in another election. And I don't think we can turn away from that if there is not some deterrent, even if it doesn't mean that the Republicans provide the kind of support for the Constitution that they should. If there isn't some deterrent, we can darn well be sure this president will commit even more egregious acts in the months ahead.
No one can dispute that last 2 sentences there. Even Trumpers. If Trump gets away with this and is not punished, he will be emboldened and do worse. I don't know what that worst could be, but he will do it, and you know it. And the worst part is Trumpers will defend it. And then here's Adam Schiff talking about what he foresees a reckoning that the GOP will suffer politically if they continue to put Trump over the United States Constitution. Clip number 4.
If we decide that we cannot accept this kind of conduct in the President of the United States, and the Republicans decide that because of the president's party, or because they're afraid of a primary, or for whatever reason, they cannot vote to support impeachment, I think it'll mean a failure by the GOP to put the country above their party. And it will have very long-term consequences if that's where we end up. And if not today, I think Republican members in the future, to their children and their grandchildren, will have to explain why they did nothing in the face of this deeply unethical man who did such damage to the country.
I hope that comes to pass. I hope that it comes to, first, there's a reckoning and then some kind of awakening in the GOP. But I have no confidence in that, because what do we see going on over this weekend? Lindsey Graham announces and doubles down today he's going to investigate Joe Biden, telling Brian Kilmeade, quote, nobody in the media really gave a damn that Hunter Biden was sitting on the board receiving $50,000 a month. What a joke. There's been no investigation, close quote. I'm not sure what investigation. We now investigate Americans who are making money, that you don't like how much money they're making? Is that what's going on? Okay. Then we learned over the weekend, and Devin Nunes went crazy, and we all know Devin Nunes and his cows. CNN reports that Nunes was working with Lev Parnas, that's Rudy Giuliani's indicted buddy, to investigate the origin of the Mueller special counsel probe, and that Parnas is reportedly willing to testify that Nunes met with a former Ukrainian prosecutor to discuss digging up dirt on Joe Biden, close quotes. Nunes denies that. I don't know what's going on, because none of these people have any credibility whatsoever. They clearly are more concerned with protecting Trump than our Constitution. And then you've got the media allies. Here's Jeanine Pirro literally lying to her Fox News viewership, calling Ambassador Gordon Sondland, a guy who's only been an ambassador because he gave $1 million to Trump, a rich guy who ran hotels, was never involved in diplomacy whatsoever. She calls him a deep state bureaucrat. I'll play the clip as she lies and then says there was no quid pro quo. When he said there was quid pro quo, everyone says, Mick Mulvaney, Chief of Staff, has said there's quid pro quo. There's no disputing quid pro quo. There's no disputing there's been a bribe here. But Jeanine Pirro, here she is lying to the Fox News audience Saturday night. Clip number 5.
And for those of you who think EU Ambassador Sondland proved otherwise, consider this. Everything he said was contradicted by the facts. The aid was delivered. There was no meeting, no call, no announcement of an investigation, no quid pro quo, the first time Ukraine had ever received lethal aid. His testimony is not only canceled by the facts, but by his demeanor, his arrogance, and his inappropriate smirking, making it clear that he, like many deep state bureaucrats, is not a fan of the president.
He is, first of all, Gordon Sondland, so close to Donald Trump, he was able to take his cell phone out at a restaurant in the Ukraine, unscheduled, and get Donald Trump on the phone in a matter of minutes. Folks, that is going to be one of the key moments in a trial one day, because that says so much. But the worst by far was Louisiana Senator John Kennedy this weekend, who gave a master class in not partisanship. I get partisanship. It troubles me at times, but I get it. This is literally misleading people. And the worst part of it, he is furthering a Russian intelligence agency theory and conspiracy theory, not a conspiracy theory, their theory that they want out there that Donald Trump has already embraced. And John Kennedy's not a dumb guy. John Kennedy, the senator, is a graduate of Vanderbilt University. He went to UVA Law School. He's got a degree from University of Oxford. He is a smart guy. This is all by design. So here he is with Chris Wallace. And listen to Chris Wallace ask him about, well, who attacked our election? Who hacked into the DNC and into the Podesta? Russia or the Ukraine? And listen to John Kennedy, clip number 6, please.
The president and his supporters have said that Ukraine was behind the hacking of the DNC computers and that it wasn't Russia. That was a big issue this week because former NSC official Fiona Hill said that that is Russian disinformation. She debunked that. But on the other hand, President Trump doubled down on that the very next day. Take a look, sir.
This is a fictional narrative that has been perpetrated and propagated by the Russian security services themselves.
They gave the server to CrowdStrike or whatever it's called, which is a company owned by a very wealthy Ukrainian. And I still want to see that server. You know, the FBI has never gotten that server. That's a big part of this whole thing.
Senator Kennedy, who do you believe was responsible for hacking the DNC and Clinton campaign computers, their emails? Was it Russia or Ukraine?
I don't know, nor do you, nor do any of us.
You don't know, nor do you. I cut the clip in half. We'll play the other part of it. So there you have a sitting senator who is telling you that despite all the U.S. intelligence agencies making it clear, and Robert Mueller's report, which states in black and white, there was a cyber hacking operation carried out by the Russian military intelligence agency, GRU. They conducted multiple rounds of hacking that resulted in the theft of data from the DNC and John Podesta. There's no dispute. That's exactly what happened. Here is John Kennedy helping Donald Trump not just muddy the waters, but to mislead Americans, to make an otherwise normal person who might be watching Fox News to go, you know what? Maybe Russia didn't attack us. Maybe this tiny little country, the Ukraine, did. The one that's having a hot war with Russia, that is worried about its own survival. They attacked the United States of America. That would make sense to me, wouldn't it? And then here's Chris Wallace doing what a good journalist does. He pushes back, but then he lets him off the hook, but he pushes back. Clip number 7.
Miss Hill,
well, I mean, let me just interrupt to say the entire intelligence community says it was Russia.
Right, but it could also be Ukraine. I'm not saying that I know one way or the other. I'm saying that Ms. Hill is entitled to her opinion, but no rebuttal evidence was allowed to be offered. We know, at least the Republicans in the House wanted to call a witness, a DNC political operative, who lobbied the Ukrainian embassy to be involved, get involved in the 2016 election. We don't know if Ukraine did that. We don't know to what extent, because they won't let the president offer his evidence. And that's why I'll say once again, the absence of evidence is not the evidence of absence if you're not allowed to call your own witnesses.
The Republicans actually did have 2 witnesses on their list here. If the Ukrainian government had attacked our election in 2016, our intelligence agencies would be talking about that. They would back that up. Robert Mueller would have had that. He had access to everything. That is nowhere. Nothing. Zero. This is literally a fabrication, but worse than a fabrication. Here is Dr. Fiona Hill's testimony. And as a reminder, she was working for John Bolton, a neocon, a right-wing guy. She's worked for and here's her testimony at the hearing on Thursday. Clip number 8.
This relates to the second thing I want to communicate. Based on questions and statements I've heard, some of you on this committee appear to believe that Russia and its security services did not conduct a campaign against our country, and that perhaps, somehow, for some reason, Ukraine did. This is a fictional narrative that has been perpetrated and propagated by the Russian security services themselves. The unfortunate truth is that Russia was the foreign power that systematically attacked our democratic institutions in 2016. This is the public conclusion of our intelligence agencies, confirmed in bipartisan congressional reports. It is beyond dispute, even if some of the underlying details must remain classified.
There is no intelligence agency providing any information, nor is Donald Trump, nor the Republicans. They go, there was one DNC staffer who talked to someone of the Ukraine. Let's be clear what Russia did. Their military, the GRU unit, the Russian military intelligence, attacked our nation. That's an act of war. That is the way acts of war happen today in today's world between superpowers. That is still an act of war. And they attacked the DNC. They worked with WikiLeaks. They attacked various state and local election boards around this nation. The Russian military attacked us in 2016. And to me, when I look at the definition of treason in the Constitution, Article 3, Section 3 of the Constitution says, treason against the United States shall consist only in levying war against them or in adhering to their enemies, giving them aid and comfort. Giving aid and comfort, as our courts have interpreted, means helping the enemy. Helping the enemy in all different ways from, and I'm looking at exact ways in certain court cases, help, support, assistance, encouragement, counseling, abetting, plotting, assenting. When you look at what the Republicans are doing now, when John Kennedy and Donald Trump and others are giving aid and comfort to Russia, who attacked us, by trying to further the Russian intelligence narrative that it was the Ukraine that attacked us and not the Russian military. How is that not treason within the contemplation of this statute, the Constitution, then codified by federal statute, which says in the 18 U.S. Code, Section 2381, in case you're following at home, the penalty for treason is death or imprisonment not less than 5 years, and incapable of holding any office in the United States of America. How is it if you're continuing to further a narrative that was created by Russian intelligence and they attacked us in an act of war, how is that not at least on the border of treason? And I'm not being hyperbolic. I'm honestly looking at this from a legal point of view. I don't think they'd be convicted beyond a reasonable doubt. I get that. But on its face, this is beyond partisanship, my friends. There are very few Republicans out there peddling this story, just so it's clear. There's Devin Nunes, there's Lindsey Graham, a little Lindsey Graham. He doesn't touch on this much. He keeps talking Hunter Biden, so even he has stepped back. You got John Kennedy, you got Devin Nunes, and a few others. Just a few. There are countless Republicans in the House who are not going on TV and doing this because they understand what they would be doing. They would be putting Russia and the Russian intelligence agency's narrative over the intelligence agency of the United States of America. Now, of course, they saw Trump do that in Helsinki, where he stood with Putin over our intelligence agency. So that is part of the Republican, what they stand for now. And here again, here's a simple point in all of this. You either, at this point, support Trump or you support the United States of America. Those are the options. I sincerely, deeply want Trump supporters to pick the United States of America and our Constitution over Trump. It is your choice, though. We will be watching. We hope you make the right choice because we will not forget. So that's where we stand. We are going into an area far beyond partisanship, my friends. We are in the area of truly aiding and abetting, giving comfort to the enemy. And how much worse this gets is the question. I don't have an answer for that. And that's the scary scenario we live in right now. So I'd love to hear from you. 866-997-4748. You're my guest at the top of the hour. Coming up next hour, Congressman Yvette Clarke's going to join us, and also the new head of the Iraq and Veterans Association, the IAVA. And they do some great work for veterans, the Iraq and Afghanistan Veterans of America, to talk about Donald Trump pardoning people who are war criminals or accused of war crimes. Talk about that. Also talk about how I think that's all part of white supremacy, because all three people he pardoned were white people who killed brown people. Muslims, to be specific, but it's more their skin color, I think, that makes them unworthy of caring for Donald Trump and playing to his white supremacist base. 866-997-4748. Give me a call. I'll be right back. You're listening to the Dean Obeidallah Show, where we crush Trump's lies every single day
on Sirius